Good morning. This is WIOX. The show you're listening to is The Other Future. I'm your host, Terry Tapp. This show, if you've been listening to it online or live on the radio here, you know that it was inspired by really the despair of the election of Donald Trump. I've said this many times, but as we've grown acclimated to the despair, sometimes I feel it's important to look back on that moment that we went through and to see where we are now, because there tends to be, in the news at least, reporting of still a general malaise, which is very understandable given the events of the day. The show has changed, though, in that as I've talked to more people, I like to look at the person first. As I'm looking at their politics or a specific project they're involved with, I like to figure out what stories they have, where they're coming from, what experiences they can share that you're not going to hear on your, I guess we still call it mainstream, but corporate sponsored big budget type media. And with that said, 2 shows ago, my guest was KMO, who hosts a long-running podcast that I listen to, and features a lot of exploration of certain topics I enjoy, such as at what time what was a collapse narrative, cognitive science narrative, a certain avenue of a political narrative that I don't necessarily agree with or disagree with, but find intriguing. Today's guest is Devaughn Denegell. He's a young musician in New York City. I tattoo as well as paint and draw and write and obviously host a radio program. And I met Dee through tattooing and had some wonderful conversations with him. So I thought his experiences as a young musician in New York City, a very changing New York City, as those of us who live there know, might be fascinating to give some voice to. So, Dee, are you here?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Hey, good morning, and thanks for coming on, man. How are you doing?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm doing good. Just trying to come over this post-nasal drip.
Yeah,
a little cold.
It's weird because not to talk the weather on the radio here, but the weather has been crazy. And a few days ago it's 60 degrees in New York City, and then it's going to be like 30, 20? I think 20 tonight, right?
Yeah, it's going to be down in the 20s.
Yeah, it's nuts because I'm in the mountains in the Catskills. And it's I think it's going to be 9 degrees tonight. So, it was 50 the other day. I don't laugh at it because of the implications, but it's, taking it on the chin. Well, Dee, can you tell me some about your background for the show? Like how you got into music, what you do, and so forth.
I started music at the age of 14, 15 years old. I, grew up in a church, Black Pentecostal church.
Sure.
So, the music, on the other hand, was always great. That's what always drew me to really going to church as a young kid, teenager at that. So one day I heard one of my, bass players who inspired me, Devaughn Denegell, right?
Right.
He was playing the bass, and after me hearing him, I was just like, man, I definitely want to play bass. And from then, man, I just fell in love with it. So I've been doing it since I was about 14, 15, and then professionally started doing it from the age of 17, where I really started making some real money. Because when you start out, everybody's like, we're going to give you something,
right,
as you get better. So I started out making, $15. And then now I've pretty much upped myself to like a few hundred, or it might be like a few grand, or it all depends on the artist or the job.
Right. $15, they're paying you $15 for a session?
It would be like to play in church, to do like a 2-3 hour church service. It would be like $15, as a little, as they like to call it in the Black church, a little love token.
Yeah, I got you. Do you? I want to talk about influences and what you've been working on and things like that. But before we do that, are you comfortable with talking about? Because I grew up in a very backwoods religious community in Kentucky, and you're either a Baptist or we call it holy roller, and our relatives are both. And I found, as I get further away from that time period, I can look at it objectively and think about it rather than deal with it kind of politically and as a social phenomenon. But what do you think? Are you, musically, what's odd is like the Baptists. I don't know. You're from New York City originally, right?
Yes, sir. I'm from New York, born and raised, but my family is from the South.
Where in
They're
the
from
South?
Georgia.
Oh.
They're from Savannah, Georgia, and Jessup, Georgia.
Okay, because I don't see the Pentecostals that influence up in the city as much. It almost seems like it doesn't have the right kind of foundation. Like the South has a nuttiness to it. Like you got to kind of be. I went to a number of Pentecostal services as a kid, and in those, the odd thing is in the Baptist services you have this kind of choral structure and a very staid sort of music. So it's it doesn't really get wild in those kind of services, and you have the choral answering, but in Pentecostals go crazy. I mean, it's actually like good music.
Yeah, it's really funny that you said that, because I'm actually in that situation now. Like now I'm employed with at a very nice Baptist church that take care of the musicians very well, and everything is structured, very staged. Throughout the service, if there's a shift in the music or whatever, sometimes the people, they sit there a little stiff as compared to in the Pentecostal, where there's no real structure. Things get pretty wild, pretty intense. The music takes over, and people just start doing the thing that they call shout dancing. Yeah. And, you could pretty much be playing music for like a long period of time, and your fingers get really tired. So I'll be up there like, man, are they going to finish anytime soon? I'm ready to go home.
They don't have time barriers like we would think in a lot of the Pentecost. What do it's interesting to me because as an artist, as mainly a visual artist, but as a writer too, time seems very different for me when I'm working. And it's to me, you enter into a state that I feel much more of a thing than just a man. Just a creature on the planet. And I noticed, like, when I was trying to understand some of what was going on with these religious services, because the Baptist, it's, not to put the Baptist up or down, but you basically go, I've been to those services as well, you go and you sit and, you hear some messages and there's some talk and then there's some singing and then you leave. The Pentecostals go crazy. I actually saw in a Pentecostal church in Kentucky many years ago an old woman who seemed to have a hard time moving when they were playing music and people were speaking in tongues and all the rest. She bent backwards over a seat. Like I don't think a gymnast could do that. It was crazy. You're supposed to be everyone had their eyes closed. But I didn't. But the music was going wild, and she bent backwards, and I saw it. It's nuts. I mean, it's physically possible, but extraordinarily difficult athletically. And then she came back up. That sort of experience is to me a form of mysticism, or art is the same thing in some weird way. I mean, what's your take on that?
Pretty much, sometimes they got a thing where it's like, hey, the Holy Spirit has hit me. So, I'm not one to say that some people are lying, but then I have been in situations where I see some people actually, just, they go home and practice a routine, to dance a certain type of music, man. Yeah. And sometimes, I see it's real, and then sometimes, depending on who the person might be, I'll be like, no, they're faking.
Sure.
And sometimes I know it's pretty much hard to make that judgment, but sometimes you have to you have to realize church is still a business.
Yeah, it's very.
Although it's a very religious thing, it's still a business. So sometimes you have your people that's really into it to really win souls, and then you have people that's just in it for the financial aspect of it.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So
it's pretty much entertainment for some people.
Yeah, I mean the Pentecostals, as somebody who's been to them and involved with that in the South, because it's Baptist and Pentecostals all the way down. I've seen the intense entertainment value that some people get. So where did you start first in New York City? What were some of your first gigs?
Some of the first gigs that I started doing, I was in high school, and my music teacher, he started allowing me the opportunity to perform at different venues with the school band. And he just always saw the potential in my playing and saw how hungry I was for information as a young bassist trying to find his way. And, I'm still searching for information, but that was some of the first gigs. We'll do probably do like a museum. Might do, like a little festival, like a little film festival in Brooklyn, right, over at the Restoration Plaza. I was also in this program called Quest, where they teach young kids of all kinds how to read music and how to, just develop their talent on their instrument. And they even extended different opportunities for us to, just start getting a little experience gigging and getting used to, gigging. Sometimes it's one of those things where it's cool, but the older you get, man, the more long hours you're up there playing, start to wear down on your body.
Yeah, of course. Plus the precariousness of just getting work and not getting work and on and on. I know as an artist, it's tiring, and I'm always I'm toying with taking more stable work and trying to work my art around that because it gets old.
Yeah, for sure.
So musically, you were starting out playing what kind of music?
Well, first I started out playing gospel,
right,
but then I eventually went on to trying to play a lot of jazz, a lot of R&B, a lot of soul music. I found out as a young kid my heart was more wrapped around a lot of soul music, like a lot of James Brown, a lot of Ray Charles. And as I discover more of what I like now, I find myself really getting into this whole Afro-Cuban type of music, like more Latin stuff, and a little bit more country and Western stuff too.
Yeah, you were talking with me about that. Who are you listening to right now that funnels into that?
I've been checking out a lot of old records, such as Jerry Reed. He's like an old country Western singer.
Yeah, I remember him.
And definitely on the Afro-Cuban side, I've been into a lot of Richard Bona. He got this thing going on, like this whole Brazilian thing, like trying to do Afro-Cuban. He's a phenomenal bass player, Richard Bona.
Right.
And I've been checking out this old record by John Patitucci. Amazing bass player. He's played with Chick Corea, a whole bunch of people. He's just phenomenal.
Are there places you can go to, like the city? And this is something everyone is talking about, of course. But the city is, being chomped up by big corporate interests, real estate developers, and so forth. And you have these, landmark chunks of architecture descending from the sky. It's like, and they're tearing up venues.
Yeah.
Where do you go? What's your experience with that?
I mean, it's still like little spots in the city, such as Gonzales and Gonzales. I hear a lot of salsa, a lot of Latin music there. It's different venues now, but it's not as many as it used to be. Right. Like one in particular, the Village Underground. Years ago, you can go there on a Sunday night and hear live music, and it was amazing. You had people such as my mentor, Cedric Mitchell, playing there. A couple other cats, Al Cardi, who plays bass, Jermaine Parrish, who plays drums, or like Nat Townsley, he's a drummer. Phenomenal musicians who tour with amazing artists. But now, you try and go catch that stuff. You can barely catch live music unless you go to the Blue Note to catch certain artists, or every now and then on Wednesday nights you can check out this group called Kennedy Administration. One of my friends, Kennedy, she has her live band there, and they have great music. But really in the, live music market, everybody and everything has been migrating over to L.A., to the West Coast.
Really? I hadn't heard that. Why is that? I mean, is that because of just what we were talking about, or is there something, a specific draw?
Yeah. Just like a lot of corporate America's taking over, man. Like the place I mentioned, Village Underground, years ago, you can go there to hear live music, but now it's turned into like a comedy show.
Right.
That's selling out more than live music. So it's more of a thing where people have lost their interest in, live music, seeing that. And everything just went over to the West Coast because it's like a better market there for it. And a lot of things is being held there, like auditions for tours, a lot of TV tapings besides your regular SNL or, the Fallon show.
Right.
Other than that, everything is going to the West Coast, man. The market for it is better. It's a lot of sessions out there. A lot of things are just picking up from out of there. In between Los Angeles, Texas, Nashville, Tennessee, and Atlanta, Georgia. Those are the hottest places right now.
Really? That's odd that they would, that band, I mean, L.A. I understand, but it's odd that band of those other three cities would outstrip New York City right now.
Yeah. I would say Nashville because it's become a better market for country. And the market has been diluted for all kinds of people now to go there and make country and Western music. Before, it was just like a strict, circle to where just, you only saw your Caucasians doing it. But now they've allowed, a lot of different races to come in and, be a part of the culture, which is something that's great.
Yeah, of course. But that's odd that's, like I said, it surpasses New York. On that note, country has evolved too. And I'm really, I like old country. This is very
for sure.
Personal. Johnny Cash and people like that. And of course, bluegrass.
Yeah.
But there was a period like when I was a teenager, country to me was just like redneck anthem music, and and now I wonder what people see in it because it's spread globally, and it seems to be so tied to the U.S. and a certain, like you're talking about, they would only let Caucasians in. But, it's tied to an economics and a geography and at one time, and it's, to me still, so I'm open to it not being, but to race. What do you see in this and what do you think other people are seeing in it? It's bluegrass. I know Robert Crumb had a piece about bluegrass that, Robert Crumb, the cartoonist, about bluegrass in Japan at one time and how people were devoting their existence to it. They were considering old-timey music to be their lifestyle. That was a title of a piece by Crumb. I mean, what do you think people are hearing in the country now that might be different than before, maybe?
I mean, the thing about it is what people hear now, I guess, is the real authenticity of, the story that it tells. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like for instance, for me, country, man, it tells a story. Like, country music tells a beautiful love story, better than some R&B songs that might tell a love story. Right. But it's just the simplicity in the music and how, less notes has more of an effect on you, and just the feel of it, man. And, honestly, country has a tremendous influence from gospel music. It's all the same feel. It's just that country is doing less. And, the more that other people are actually able to play it, the feel of it becomes better. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's something that's definitely what people are hearing now. And it, is definitely one of those things that's picking up, Right. I listen to Joni Mitchell. She has, like her song "Help Me." That's phenomenal. And then I heard my friend, this artist out of New York, Aaron Marcellus. He has a beautiful voice. Now he sang the same song with his band, and the feel of it was like a little bit better, and it was killing. And I was just like, man, it's amazing.
Yeah, I heard an interpretation of "Changes" by Black Sabbath, by a blues musician, and actually, I think he just went straight a cappella, just hitting it with no instrumentation at all, and it was gorgeous, really simplified. You wouldn't know that he was actually singing a part written for Ozzy Osbourne.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it was fantastic, and if you listen to the song. he was. It's about loss and change, obviously, given the title. And the guy had lost his mother. He talked a little bit about this, and then sang the song. And I was kind of cringing at first because, Ozzy doesn't really have a lot of vocal range, and
right.
And I didn't grow up as a teenager with Black Sabbath so much as they were like a little bit earlier than me, and I was getting their albums from thrift stores and things. But they still had that really strong bluesy influence in the metal, and I liked it. So I had a particular connotation with them that I wouldn't assume. This blues musician. I think he was in Chicago. He may have been in the city, in New York. That he would carry to it, or what I would get from him to bring to it. That's fascinating, man. So who else do you listen to? I'm just throwing a name out, but like the Budos Band. Do you know them?
I know them. I don't really spend much time listening to them, though.
Okay, I was just curious because they're Afro soul and really fascinating group to me. And they were doing a lot of shows about 4 years ago, I think, coming out of Staten Island. And when I was reading about it, I read that there were several other Afro soul groups that were in some area in Staten Island, but coming from there, and it was almost like a little enclave of influence. But yeah, that's fascinating. You were listening to Joni Mitchell and putting her alongside country. I think the fact that like listening to today's music, the corporate pop music, I don't see how someone would get any sort of attachment to that. And the narrative of country, I do see that. It reminds me, if you're doing gospel, I mean, gospel always has a story to it, even if the story is always the background story of the Bible. I could see where that would be very influential at this time. I mean, what else do you see in some of this? What else is influencing you?
Some gospel music is influencing me, but then on another hand, some gospel music is actually being diluted now too. A lot of gospel artists are taking the wave of in the direction of some of the secular artists,
right? Where
they're mixing up gospel with some secular movements in terms of note choices and everything. And just, you might get a little confused now when you hear a gospel song. It's not your regular old-fashioned gospel song, which is decent and it's okay for me. But I really, really, really miss some of the traditional gospel stuff.
Right.
Like stuff from like the 90s and everything.
Do you think
was really...
Go ahead. I was just going to ask, there seems to be in all types of media a convergence, you don't really have a lot of the boundaries we used to have on things. Not that I like them or dislike them, but there was a point at which if you were listening to contemporary country in Kentucky in 1982, I mean, it had a very definite sound for what it was, and it was not blues and it was not gospel. I mean, it may have influences of both, but it was its own thing. And if you were listening to jazz that came out of, New York City in 1975, it was its own thing. Chicago had its own jazz. People like Mississippi had its own blues, for instance, obviously.
Yeah.
So, but all these, I think, the boundaries between those have been progressively breaking down since cable, in a way, and since we had Walkmans, 1,000 years ago.
That was the move back then.
Yeah, that was a crazy time too, because all I knew of music is like you have the turntable, and the people had 8 tracks, which were weird because they'd make these crazy sounds, when they switched over, and and it was like holding on to a fist of plastic, trying to insert the thing. But the stuff from my childhood, and then you have the radio, and then all of a sudden it starts, you have tapes and tapes you can carry around, and MTV and all that initial take into a more personal relationship with how you receive your music, which that changes things to me. And it's why it was one of the reasons I enjoy having you on here, because my perspective is very much locked in with my travels and my age and my just being me. And for someone making music in the city at this time, that's fascinating. So what are some other venues? I know right now you've been working burlesque, right?
Yes, sir. I've been with this burlesque club that is phenomenal. It's called Devaughn Park, NYC. Right. It's in Soho, in Manhattan. Yeah, it's been great there. A lot of weird shit goes on there, man.
Of course, right. Like, well, I mean, as much as you can talk about on the radio, what are some of the stories that you've pulled out of there?
Man, one night, the first time I had to go there, I walked in and I thought it was just like this regular restaurant. And I got my axe with me, got my bass, and I go up there, and I came with the time my ex-girlfriend, and I'm just like, all right, babe, sit at the bar. I'm going to go play. And I go up there, and then this is set list, it's showtime.
Sure.
And we're playing. Next thing you know, I see this host come out, and she has on barely any clothes. And I'm just like, okay, this is weird. I don't know what was going on. And then as the dancers are coming down the stairs and we're playing music, I feel a foot on my head. And I'm like, oh, my God. So I'm just looking at my ex-girlfriend like, man, I don't know what I got myself into, but please don't kill me. I didn't know. And it was just really weird. And, walking into a dressing room, seeing the ladies naked and switching, and everybody's just regular and it's normal. And I'm just like, wow. Like, I've never been around this much sexuality to where it's just so normal for them. Right. Normally you walk in and see naked women and reacting like, oh, man, get out of here. But it was so normal. I was just like, wow.
Yeah, I would assume if they're doing it night after night, they get, horribly accustomed to it. I say horribly because, you would think that, like, seeing a piece of art or a beautiful body would always make an impression on you and always, be an event. But yeah, I would assume that if it's a job, that it becomes dreary in a way to people.
Yeah, and those ladies, man, all of them have, they're very beautiful women. But I noticed they have a lot of artwork on their bodies, like a lot of tattoos, man.
Right.
Like a ton of tattoos. Like their whole body is almost covered in tattoos, and it's really, really beautiful.
So, are you playing the same routine at the club?
Normally at the club, it's different hosts. Like a name that I mentioned earlier, Aaron Marcellus.
Right.
He's normally there, and when he's there, a lot of his tunes are a lot of soulful tunes. A lot of he might do Adele, Rolling in the Deep. We might do Earth, Wind and Fire, Can't Hide Love, Bill Withers, Use Me. Gnarls Barkley, Crazy, different tunes like that. He might pull out a couple Stevie Wonder tunes. Then on another night, we might have this host. Her name is Liza, and she'll go into the whole rock thing, right. Rock and soul, where she might do a couple of Aretha Franklin tunes, and then she's hitting us with a lot of Tina Turner tunes and a lot of burlesque tunes, and then from between those two. Then it's another host named Bridget. She'll come in along the same lines of the rock and soul. So it's different songs, but majority of it for the dancers is the same stuff.
Right.
So it becomes really, really, really tiring. And, at a point as an artist, you're not going to turn down a gig where you need money. So, it's one of those things.
Yeah, of course. Do you notice?
But I have fun doing it.
Well, I would assume, man. I mean, obviously your music and musical ability are great. But do you notice the clientele changing? You've done this for 3 years at the same location.
Yeah, the clientele, man. The clientele is phenomenally outstanding. Like, we've always had, it's always packed in there. And it's normally, like, different groups of people. And it's interesting because you always meet somebody that's highly connected. Or it's a lot of celebrities that often come through just to have dinner. And when they're there, it's just regular, like they're regular people when they're there. So we've had Gabrielle Union come through. We've had Janet Jackson there, Smokey Robinson and his wife. We've had Ice-T and his wife, Coco. We've had Erica Mena from Love and Hip Hop there.
Right.
A lot of different people come, and they really enjoy the experience. It's really an experience when you come there, and the food is really great.
That's added, but yeah, the music and of course beautiful people, and it sounds like like what they put together is something that's almost a throwback. Which is wonderful, and especially in Soho. I lived close to there at one point, and the neighborhood, like a lot of it is just gone. It's corporified so much. I know on I think it was going down Bleecker. I'm not sure, but there was a beautiful building that's basically full of cell phone displays. You could go and buy your smartphone and things. And if you look at the outside of the building, it's gorgeous. A man who used to live there, I think he grew up near that part of almost like Greenwich Village. He said that was our post office. So
oh, wow.
Yeah, so you could see, there was a time when you could go and you're just going to mail a letter, but you're going to this beautiful architecture that, a musician could use, an artist could use, a gallery, but it's just like there's nothing there where you see just cell phones, and the whole thing. I mean, it's like one of those flagship stores, they call it, or something, where you walk in and it's just a display of these things you could find everywhere else on every other geographical locale on the planet. But plus, you see those, if you're walking along, you'll see signs that they've left up from the businesses that are gone. And it just, it at one time had that feel where you could come in like any neighborhood, you could come in and enjoy talking to an actual person rather than, dealing with the corporate flagship and, products that look like they're anywhere else. What other gigs have you done in other cities? Like, what other cities have you been visiting? Have you been to Nashville?
No, I have not been to Nashville. I have a friend out there who just moved there who told me I can come down whenever I can to just experience some of the, the culture.
Sure.
And he's been down there, man, taking over some of that, country and western thing, man. He's a bass player as well. His name is Jay White.
Right.
He's from New York, man. Killing artist. Phenomenal singer as well, man, and he definitely writes songs. His penmanship is out of this world. He's fantastic, man, and he's been tearing that market up down there. But in terms of me, I've been to Texas. I've been down to Austin and Dallas, but Austin for the South by Southwest Festival, which was amazing. I've done that 2 years in a row, back in 2017 and 2018.
Right.
In February of those years, with this artist named Amso Malik, young cat coming up. He's based out of New York too. Really, really, really great music. I've been to Ohio. I've been out there doing a couple of gospel gigs. I've been to a couple of places. Been to Vegas, did a gig out there. Thankfully to my mentor, Cedric Mitchell.
Right.
He's called me for that. Just a couple of things, man. Can't really think about it off the top of my mind, but it's a couple of things. But there's some things that I'm aiming to do right now. Working on my record, working on my first record.
And let me also say, this is WIOX. You're listening to The Other Future. I'm your host, Terry Tapp, and my guest this week is Devaughn Denegell. D, is there a place where people can go online to hear some of your work, or are there places where you would recommend people go to find out about music that you're really being influenced by right now?
Yeah, man. On SoundCloud, I have a SoundCloud link that I've been putting up music. I've been putting up some old stuff, but soon I wouldn't say listen to my old stuff. That's like the beginning stages. But now I'm working on putting out music on iTunes, YouTube. I'm going to be making some things. I'm going to create a web page. Once I create a page, I'm going to definitely give that to you so you could always, let people know every now and then to check out music that I've been working on. When people are in New York, some places that they can go, the Groove NYC, you might catch me there. You might catch me definitely at the Wayne Park NYC on the weekends,
right.
playing there. But some of the music that I listen to, often I go to like the Blue Note There's a couple of artists that has been there that I've really, really been checking out, such as like Robert Glasper. He's been doing like this whole collaboration with artists throughout the month of October last year, but he's normally in and out of there.
At the Blue Note.
Keon Harrell.
Right.
Yeah, at the Blue Note. And it's just phenomenal, man.
Are there any new places coming up? Because I know Cleopatra's Needle announced its closing.
Yeah, I know. Man, to be honest with you, a lot of spots are closing, man. You know, music hasn't really been getting that attention, and some bars haven't really been getting that attention, like open mics and stuff people used to do. But there's one open mic that has really been doing really well in Brooklyn, New York, at a place called Sweet Brooklyn. One of my good friends, Sheldon Ray, he's been having this open mic every Tuesday night where he allows artists to just come and be themselves, and it's a live band, and they're all killing.
Sweet Brooklyn, where's that?
It's a bar / lounge.
I mean,
in Brooklyn.
What part of Brooklyn?
Crown Heights. It's in Crown Heights. It's located on Pacific, between Notion and Pacific. Yeah, it's on Notion and Pacific.
You know, I lived in Brooklyn for a while, and there were these little venues that every now and then, almost just spontaneously, to me it seemed, people of a ridiculous talent would show up at. There was Freddy's. I don't know if you know of that one, but
I've heard of them.
They were downtown Brooklyn, and they moved to Park Slope, South Slope.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived next door to them. I would go over there, and every now and then, an amazing musician would show up. You know, they had a back room where I believe they're still doing it. They had a program called Ed Sullivan on Acid, and they would have these amazing entertainers come in and just throw a routine out and leave, or get drunk or whatever they're doing. But I know there was a lady that was one of the best singers I've heard in New York City. I can't remember her name offhand. I'm sure my girlfriend would, but we were having a drink at Freddy's. It was late at night, and they announced that there was going to be music. And, a guy with a bass shows up, a guy to play piano, and this lady, and she starts in, and it was phenomenal. So there is still some of that, but so Sweet Brooklyn is one, as you just mentioned. Are there any others that are getting a lot of attention, or that you're giving attention to, where a lot of good music's coming from?
Besides Sweet Brooklyn, the Groove NYC over in Soho is on West 3rd and MacDougal.
Sure.
They're really good. I've been giving a lot of attention to them. Other than that, man, there's not really much spots. If you want to check out some good jazz, it's a place called Smalls out there,
right,
in Manhattan.
Yeah.
I've been going there checking out a lot of jazz as I pick up the upright, learn how to play that.
Right, of course. Yeah. So in terms of the music in New York City right now, I mean, have you noticed? I mean, we talked about places closing, and that's a horrible phenomenon that's going on in New York City, period, with everything. But do you notice any trends, like stylistic trends?
Yeah.
Like what?
For sure. The trend, some of the music that's trending now in New York that's really, really becoming more and more popular is like this mixture of jazz with hip-hop,
right,
and R&B. So one of the artists that does a phenomenal job at that is Robert Glasper. He's been changing the market with that for years now, but where he crossed over from just doing mainly jazz to mixing up jazz with R&B and hip hop, and that's really trending right now in New York. So although the live music aspect of like open mic stuff, a lot of underground stuff is starting to take over in that market.
Underground in what way? I mean, there are different understandings for that. Go ahead.
Underground, like a lot of rappers trying to link up with live bands now, like that type of thing, where it's not so much like an open mic where you can go in the club and hear, a band and a singer playing, top 40 songs,
sure,
from all different, eras. But now you can go somewhere and check out a rapper, with a live band, doing either their original music or, just stylistically just mixing a lot of stuff.
It's interesting. Do you know, like, I wonder if there's an actual venue trend that's starting to emerge. Like right now, I was talking to a sound engineer the other day, and he said so many sound engineers are moving underground. And by underground, he meant not only figuratively, but literally, like to their basement, because the equipment is getting so affordable, and the spots, like the actual, like he had been renting a space in Midtown, Manhattan, and he said it was just so much easier to put his studio in a basement and go from there. Tattooing is doing the same thing, where a shop is not really where you want to be. Because you can just advertise on Instagram and get clients that way rather than having to go through a traditional shop. That's why I was concerned about not worried, but intrigued by when you said underground. I mean, do you know is there a similar movement with music right now?
Yeah, it's a similar movement. One of the places that's been doing that, where they've been allowing artists to come in and do certain things like that, is this place in Manhattan, over there by the Holland Tunnel, almost before you get to the Holland Tunnel. It's called over there on Varick Street. It's called SOBs. They've been allowing different music, different artists to come in with that, doing their own thing creatively with a live band. But the market is becoming, different, because before you could play somewhere and a person to come hear you and pick you up for a tour or whatever. But now it's like you really have to advertise yourself on social media. And I have a problem with that because I'm not always on social media.
Yeah.
But, if you really want to get people to know who you are and, make some noise, you got to really, really put up a lot of content as an artist now to really make it. Or people don't really care if you are great at whatever you do. You just got to put up a lot of content. And that's what I struggle with, putting up content.
I have the same thing, because I appreciate social media and digital media in general for allowing that avenue. But at the same time, I hate hanging out on it.
Yeah.
And I've got some different things I'm involved with, and I see, if I check into it, instead of a message from someone, I'll have 58 messages, with a conversation going, and I don't have time for that. But yeah, I wonder if music is evolving to the point where we're going to be listening to it more and more remotely, or screened or mediated, and these live performances are going away, or if we're actually going to build a new network of live venues that are maybe smaller, more intimate, kind of the equivalent of the basement or the private studio. It seems that's possible. I've noticed some things in the mountains here, not in the more remote areas, but above the city, like an hour above or so, smaller venues opening up that afford the intimate moment of music itself, rather than having to listen to it on headphones, wherever you are. I mean, in your bedroom, in your living room. And that's why I was intrigued by that possibility. So SOBs is doing something like that.
Yeah, SOBs is doing something phenomenally. But right now, I'm trying to create a movement, man, that kind of like brings the sound back to New York. And soon as the weather starts to break around springtime, around that time, I'm getting ready to do like this huge show where I put together a lineup of artists to just come together. And my project that I'm going to release this year is going to be a collaboration. Well, I'm going to put out two projects. I'm going to put out an actual album, and then I'm going to release like a little EP with me collaborating with friends. So that's two projects I'm going to do this year alongside with a show I'm doing.
And what you're thinking of doing a show that you're saying a movement in what way?
Like a movement to just get artists back on that plateau to just be seen and heard, and not really get caught up in so much of the social media. Now I will have people there that will be, capturing a lot of content for the internet and for, Instagram and everything like that. I just want to start a movement, man, to just get live music going again. And that's something that's really, near and dear to my heart.
Of course.
Because I have so many ideas, but sometimes it's hard when you don't have places that's afforded to you for you to be heard or seen. So that's something I'm getting ready to do. And I'm going to mix it up. It's going to be a collaboration of, visualizing art, having art pieces in the gallery, and live music.
Are you thinking of like a pop-up?
Yeah, kind of like a pop-up shop.
Yeah, I've wondered why. Like some galleries have been doing that. I don't know. Star Gallery in the Lower East Side has been doing pop-ups, and I've stumbled on some of them, and then I've now on a list where I can find them. But I really haven't noticed musicians doing that, and it seems, especially with what do they call it? It's the high-end blight, which is when they gentrify a neighborhood and like soar the rents, really push them up, and they don't have a renter. So they'll let the property lay fallow. You just have a blank storefront forever, hoping to recoup those losses. And to me, you could go in and offer them, some reasonable portion of their unreasonable rent, and put music there for 2 days or even a night, and have something really amazing. But there doesn't seem to be a network of that going on in the city right now like there is or has been with pop-up galleries.
Yeah, and that's something that has caught my eye, pop-up galleries. So I definitely want to do a show like that, have a pop-up gallery, have a few artists. I definitely would love to have some of your pieces in there, just showing itself, man, because some of those pieces are some real authentic, work, man.
Well, I appreciate it. But so in Texas, when you've gone down there, what are things like, with the reception of the music that are different from maybe New York City with what's changing here? Do you notice?
Texas was cool. They were receptive to the music. Certain parts still had, some of its old traditional, culture things happen, where it still felt like a little bit of, segregation, down there. But other than that, Texas was really good. They have some really great brisket and some good barbecue down there.
Yeah, Texas has its own. You still have a division between Texas barbecue and Kentucky barbecue. The little place I was born in, actually is known for its barbecue, and it's actually one of the few things that it should be known for. It's really awesome. But Texas has a very different style, and the distinction between the two is maintained.
Oh yeah, like Texas is one of my favorite places to actually drive because their speed limit is like 80.
Right. Yeah, because they got oil.
Yeah,
so, they're all about that. Well, we're coming to the end of the hour slowly here, and we still have a tough time for you to talk about some of like the things that you've noticed just in general as a performer in the city. Like what are some fascinating stories that you have come across in your years playing bass in New York City, man?
Man, playing bass in New York City. Definitely, I've noticed to discuss financial details. Definitely way before you do a gig. Sometimes things are a little blurry in that area. Some people might be like, "Hey, have no budget. Sorry to tell you," or sometimes you want to do stuff, and it's real hard as an artist here. I've noticed that much.
Yeah.
People try and cheat you out of your price and. Try and get you to lower your price, but it's like, man, you're getting great quality. Why should I lower my price?
Right. Yeah.
It's really rough.
There's a basic hustle in the city that you get. As a tattoo artist, you get it too, which is I don't deal with this anymore, but guys, especially musicians, would come into a shop and they would lay out some sort of idea that they wanted, explain, I want like portraits of every ancestor I've had going back to the first of the hominid line. And they want them portraits and dates in the leaves of a tree across their entire back. And they would take time talking about this. And it's some crazy thing that really it was too involved, and it's probably going to be about 15,000. And then at the end of this discussion, they would tell you that they don't have any money, but their music is amazing, and they're about to blow up. And as soon as they blow up, they're going to take you with them. So if you can get started right now on this gigantic, intense piece you have to design, then we're ready. And I got where the variations on that kind of hustle I can steer away from and save my time and be like, no, man, like you actually have to have at least a deposit to put down to take my drawing time. And so I would assume galleries do that too. If you're going to even do a pop-up, you need to have a discussion of what is their cut, how you're going to get paid, what's the time frame. I mean, there's especially for artists of any sort, musicians, painters, dancers, anyone.
Yeah.
You have.
Yeah, it's really, really hard.
Well, are there any specific, that's good advice, but are there any specific stories you've had where you've run into problems or had somebody, really treat you well in that way?
Oh, man. To be honest with you, Dwayne Park really treats me really well. I've never had any financial issues there. Right. Set aside from them, the Baptist church that I play at, they're so professional, so organized. They take really good care of me, man. Everything through them is direct deposit. And it's really it's not easy over there. I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's still fun, but it's professional at the same time. Other than that, different artists you may do a gig with. Sometimes, I might take a gig with a friend or whatever, and sometimes it'll come to an issue where it's now I got to wait for the money. Yeah. Oh man, I didn't get the check yet, man. Or hey, I just got the check. Now I have to wait for it to clear. One time I did a gig with an artist and had to wait damn near a month to get my money.
That's crazy.
Yeah, man, that's pretty wild.
Yeah, I've done some artwork for people for a couple of different books, and one time it was almost a year. No, it was over 6 months. I'm exaggerating, but it was at least that until I got a check in the mail, and I had actually gotten frustrated and moved on and not thought about it. Let me ask you this. Because I have to touch on these things. But as a young man, as a young musician, what are your observations right now? We're coming to the 2020 election, and
man,
what do you think?
Politically, man, I just feel like as long as we can get somebody in the House that is not trying to put America in a real hole, man, to be going at war with anybody. That's definitely what we don't need. One of my really good friends that I used to date, she's in the military, and I worry about her getting deployed, man, anytime. Yeah. My godbrother's in the military, and he has 2 kids, and I really worry about him getting deployed at any time. And I feel like Trump being in the office, man, has really been a complete disaster for America, culturally, financially. And, just all around economically, man, it's no reason why we should be going to war with anybody about anything when this is supposed to be the land of the free, allowing people to come here for opportunities.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that the Iran deal was actually a really good treaty that we had come up with, that Obama had come up with, and the fact that they just tore it up really kind of lays bare where we are, as a nation, who's in control, and what they're looking for, which is ultimately profit. But yeah, I was just curious, because I think you mentioned culturally it's bad for us. I mean, it's not only bad, I think, socially, but I wonder as an artist, what these, to me, monstrous people that we get in do to us. When Ronald Reagan was horrible, but the country still had enough money that hadn't been soaked up into a thin vein at the top. Yeah. And so people weren't suffering as badly. But he was wonderful in a way because he was so hideous that a lot of artists could put him on albums. He helped the punk movement just by being a fiend, and having that ugly face. the kind of dried apple doll face, you know. And it seems like Trump. I mean, he's such a monster that. You know, when I look at him, I mean, he's punchable, you know, and he's part of all these people, you know, need a basket for their head. But the point is that, you know, you could draw him, you could make fun of him. He energizes in a very negative way, but energizes, you know, music and art and such, kind of like Ronald Reagan in that sense.
Man, I almost wrote a song about Trump, man. It's called The Orange Man.
There you go. Called The Orange Man.
Yeah.
Was it going to have lyrics or just going to be an instrumental?
Oh, no, I was going to have some lyrics, like, along the lines of, like, man, I really want you out of office. Like, please, why are you tearing this country apart from its happy home? Like, America hasn't always been great, you know, but the thing is, like, man, like, we don't need to make it any worse. Like, we have so much diversity here. Why would we want to make things harder on ourselves when we have people that's coming in and out of the U.S. to make a better life for themselves? That's all people want to do. You know, now you have your people that have, you know, negative intentions, but majority of the people here just want to make a better life for their family, man. That's really what it's about.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's not fortunate, and Trump is really making it even harder for artists to even, you know, do anything, because, you know, when you look at artists, bro, we're all from different races, different colors, shapes, sizes, and we're not trying to be like, you know, we don't want no racism between art.
Yeah,
we want it to just be art.
Of course. On that note, D, this has been The Other Future. You're listening to WIOX. I'm your host, Terry Tapp. My guest this week has been D. Denegell. He's a musician in New York City. And encourage you to take time and go down to, what is the club again?
Duane Park, NYC.
In Soho. And listen to him perform. He's an amazing bassist. D, thank you so much. And I will see you soon, man.
Yes, sir, man. My pleasure.
All right. Thanks, man. Talk to you soon. My upcoming guests include people such as Larry Bassett, who is a now well-known pacifist and tax resistor, and several other fascinating interviews with writers on ideology and a lot of our current malaise. Thanks for listening, and I will be back in 2 weeks.